After recording a full explanation of all 139 killer perks in DBD, I have noticed myself saying the same 3 sentences over and over again. This perk is okay, but sadly there's just no reason to use it over this other perk that does the same thing but a much simpler trigger condition. This is a nice effect, but remember that a survivor with Vigil can shorten its duration by a lot and sometimes make it useless. This is fun, but keep in mind that it cannot stack fully with other similar effects due to diminishing returns, so it's not really worth it. So I don't necessarily disagree with Otz here. A lot of killer perks do suffer from one of these 3 problems, or several of them, but survivor perks suffer from these issues even more than killer perks do, to the point that build variety is simply not an option if you want to win games on Survivor. Starting with this one, this perk is okay, but sadly there's just no reason to use it over this other perk. I can think of multiple examples of this on Survivor, where it's literally the same effect, but an easier trigger condition for one of the perks. Like Hardened versus Calm Spirit. Hardened is a perk from Lara Croft that makes it so that after you cleanse a totem and open a chest, you won't scream. Once. In exchange for a 5-second aura read on the killer. Mind you, unless you're going against like a clown or a doctor, the only times you scream are when you go down or get hit. Calm Spirit is clearly the better choice. There is no activation requirement so that you don't scream with Calm Spirit. It's permanent instead of a one-time use, and it comes at the small disadvantage of cleansing totems and opening chests slightly slower, neither of which you should be doing anyway unless the killer has hexes. Then you have Wicked and Deliverance, 2 perks that allow survivors to unhook themselves, but one of them only works in the basement. I can't think of any 2 killer perks that have the exact same effect, where one is a clear choice over the other. The closest thing I can think of is Unforeseen and Trail of Torment, but both of those are pretty solid perks. Trail of Torment is probably slightly better. This is a nice effect, but remember the survivor with Vigil can shorten its duration by a lot and sometimes make it useless. So obviously there isn't like a killer equivalent of Vigil, but there are a lot of perks that certain killers can just render completely useless on the survivor side. And not useless in the Vigil shortens the duration way, like actually useless. Overcome, for instance, or any perk that activates on an injury is completely useless against insta-down killers. Every healing perk is useless against Plague and arguably Legion if you're using the correct counterplay, which is to not heal. This also includes perks like Dramaturgy and Finesse that are hard countered when going against a Plague. There are entire killer powers that just hard counter survivor perks. And you can't handle a little Vigil? This is the only one that I kind of feel is like equivalent on the killer and survivor side, basically like diminishing returns. Diminishing returns has really only impacted haste and hinder. Like, yes, it does affect other things, but not noticeably. But haste and hindered is one of those things where every percent matters, and so you notice it more. It's definitely slightly worse on the survivor side, since all of the survivor haste perks have lower numbers and more difficult activation requirements. Killer haste perks are still bad now that they can't be stacked, don't get me wrong, but they're definitely more usable on their own than survivor ones. All in all, this is definitely more of an issue for the survivor role than the killer role, and all it does is show how much worse survivors have it.